we celebrate this Sunday, Divine Mercy Sunday, which is a feast that was made extraordinarily important by St. John Paul II, who was a Polish pope. So therefore, the Polish pastor has also decided that we make sure that this is very much on the forefront. All right, fine, I'm going to drop this joke. I tried it like 3 or 4 times. 5 o'clock, it went right over their heads, and so, all right, so we're going to throw that one out. But we're here today to experience the weekend after Easter, the beauty of the resurrection still. And we see that in that first week, Christ accomplished the impossible. He overcame death. He rose from the dead. And for us, he has redeemed us back into that right relationship with God. And now comes this weekend, Divine Mercy Sunday, which now he does another impossible act. He comes into our own hearts and shows us the beauty of God's love. Now we have to explain mercy just a little bit before we can understand truly what this weekend is all about. Because sometimes we have this understanding that mercy is just a blank check. All right, God's merciful, so therefore I can continue on my way. And that's simply not true. That mercy is an act that God is always full of. If we look at the Old Testament, we see that our brothers and sisters in the Jewish faith have constantly seen God's mercy, his unconditional love, the point in which in every step of the way, even when they rejected him, he was still there to love them and to be with them and to await their return. And that's what we experience today, that unconditional love and that mercy. But mercy requires a second step. Mercy requires us to accept it. And not only to accept it, but to beg for the graces that are attached to mercy. Because it's through the grace of mercy that we experience the love of God that then transforms us to be who we're called to be. It's through his death and resurrection, through our own baptism, that we experience that rebirth. And then for the rest of our lives, we need to experience his mercy throughout our lives so that that can help us to be the person that we were called to be, to truly live out our faith well. And so we go back to the gospel where we see this exercise of mercy being on display for all of the disciples. The first thing that happens is he appears through a locked door. How does that apply to us? 99% of the time, we are our harshest critic. We are the most intense judge when it comes to our own sinfulness, our own failings, and our own faults. And as a priest, I can't even tell you how many times I've had people say, well, no one can forgive me for what I've done. I can't be forgiven. I've done some things that I'm not proud of, and we hold on to these things, and we drag these things for the rest of our lives. The purpose of Christ breaking through that locked door is that despite our weakness and our stubbornness, God bursts through into our heart. He is present to us, and therefore we have to experience that mercy. And so that's the first step. The second step is he says, peace be with you. Because many times we feel that we're not worthy to approach our God, that our sinfulness is too great, or that we've done something that keeps us from that moment. And so he first says, peace be with you. Be at peace, I'm with you. And then he shows us something that we need so much. He shows us his wounds. He shows us his wounds first, so that we can then trust in him to show him ours. To allow him to heal our wounds, to heal our sinfulness, to heal our brokenness. And then the third part is where we doubt in God's mercy, where we doubt in his ability to forgive us. And our moments when we feel that we are so alone, we look to Thomas. What happens with Thomas? He says, unless I see him, unless I touch him, unless I truly believe, I'm not with you. That's the beauty of what we do every weekend when we reach our hands out to touch him and receive him in the Eucharist. That it is in that moment that our faith is renewed and uplifted, and that we become what we receive in order to experience the mercy of Jesus Christ. That is divine mercy. That is our entire lives. That is our faith journey. And so most of this rests within the beautiful sacrament of confession. And so for anyone who says that, where in the scriptures does it say that priests have to be the one to hear confessions? That's it. He says it right there. That whoever sins you forgive are forgiven, and whoever sins you retain are retained. That's the divine commission. Because in the presence of Christ, he healed them. He said, "Peace be with you," to them. And he brought them into that moment of strength, in communion, and in fullness of Christ. In the absence of Christ, in which we are living in this moment, it is through the priest who acts in the sacramental moments in persona Christi, that acts as Christ in that moment, that says, "Peace be with you," and that we enter into that beautiful moment of confession. We all need this. We all need the experience of God's love and mercy, namely for the simple fact that we so desperately need grace and mercy and love within our hearts so that we can conform ourselves to Christ, so that we can have that peace, so that we can have that joy. If everyone experienced God's mercy, everyone experienced this redemptive act of love in the confessional, the world would be a different place. Our relationships would be better. Not perfect, because we're still on the other side of heaven. It's not a magical moment, but rather it's a divine moment. So many people say that I don't experience God, or I have a hard time experiencing him throughout my life. Well, if we cut ourselves off from the sacraments, if we cut ourselves off from forgiveness, then we won't forgive. If we cut ourselves off from his love, his mercy that he freely offers us, then we don't experience that. We cannot experience this on our own. Look at the Jewish people in the past, in the Old Testament. It was when they experienced God again in his fullness that they entered back into right relationship. When we see the apostles in the gospel, they live in fear, anxiety, and stress until Christ comes and says, "Peace be with you." And so for us in this time of the church, it's within the sacraments that we need and beg God to give us the mercy and strength in order to live out our lives well. That through our baptism, we have that Easter experience of dying and rising again with Christ. That within making a good confession, and listen, we're all good people. That's one of my biggest pet peeves, that people say, "Well, I'm a good person, I don't need confession." That's not the point. The point is that if we want to experience God truly as he is, we need to exercise all of the graces and all of the sacraments. We need to say, "I love you, I forgive you, be at peace, go and change the world." That's what confession is. It's our pride that keeps us from that. It's that original sin that we think that we're better than God that keeps us from experiencing his sacramental grace. And only when we make a good confession and we receive the Eucharist in a state of grace, then we fully experience that joy of becoming what we receive. That is so critical to our faith. That is so critical to the unity of the church. It is so important and powerful for the world to see that. If we exude God's grace, if we live out mercy in our relationships, even in the most difficult ones, where we have a failure to forgive, bring it to confession over and over again. If we sin the same sins over and over again, welcome to the club. We all do this, but we need that humility of knowing that we will never accomplish anything without God first. And so this sacrament gives us that opportunity to place God first in our lives, to experience that mercy and love, and to know that we can begin again fully and have that sense of purpose once again and that peace, so that when we walk out of that confessional, when we walk out of the church, when we go back out into the world, the first words on our lips are, "My Lord and my God." To see, to experience, to touch, all of these things are what the sacraments offer us. And so this weekend, this afternoon, from 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, the Chapel of Divine Mercy will be sung again. Confessions will be heard. Eucharistic adoration will be available. And then we go into the 5 o'clock Mass. If you have not experienced His mercy, make today the day. If it's been 25, 30, 40 years since you've last been to confession, welcome back. We'll help you. We'll walk you through it. Don't leave God out. Unlock the doors to our hearts so that He can come in and offer us peace. And when there's peace in our hearts, that peace transfers to the world, to our families, to our workplaces, to our friends, and even the broken relationships. Sin does not have a stand on us anymore. We did that last weekend. Now unlock the doors and allow God to do the rest. Amen.